Okay, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Let's see. All right, good morning. Thank you, everyone, for being here today for Intergovernmental Coordination on this, what appears to be a beautiful Tuesday morning. So thank you all for being here at 9 a.m. So we're going to go ahead and get our meeting started. And let's see. We've got Senator Halpern, SB 252, if you'd come up here to the table and please go ahead and present your bill to the committee.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and committee. SB 252 is a pretty simple bill, but unusual in that it needed to be a general bill. 252 simply allows the city of Atlanta to transfer a piece of property over to Atlanta Public Schools. And it will be a no-loss land swap. But decades ago, written to the code, it said that any city with a population higher than 300,000 can't just do that on its own unless that piece of property has already been deemed abandoned for public use. This particular piece of property that we're talking about today is right next to an elementary school, Hope Hill Elementary, and Atlanta wants to be able to let that elementary school use the existing tricycle park as a play area for kids and fence it in. And that is the simplicity of this bill. It simply would allow the city of Atlanta to transfer a piece of property to Atlanta Public Schools in a no-loss land swap deal.
Thank you so much, Senator. All right, just a little side note, if it's okay.
Yes.
My office did some research. The only city in Georgia with a population greater than 300,000 is the city of Atlanta. So just for your information, just to make sure you were very clear, but just to make sure if anyone else had that question. So committee members, are there any questions that you have for the bill's author at this point?
Can I add one other thing that I neglected to say? You're looking at a committee sub. The difference between that sub and what we passed out of the Senate is really only that we added that specifically for the use of the school system for educational purposes. That's really the addition. And also that very last sentence in the bill says, at no point in time shall the cumulative impact of such conveyances result in a decrease or net loss of park acreage owned by the municipality. So that's the no land loss swap piece. Those are the only changes really from what we passed in the Senate, just to make it clear.
Thank you. And my wonderful policy analyst over here reminded me, could you read us the LC number just to make sure that we're all operating from the same substitute?
Yes, sure. It's LC 443164S.
All right, thank you. And it looks like Chairman Mathiak, you have a question?
I was going to ask for the LC number, but we've got that handled at the appropriate time. I'll call for a do pass.
Okay, all right. Hold that thought. All right. Chairman Irwin, please go ahead with your question.
And thank you for this bill and for your schools there. But it was also at the appropriate time. So
now we do have someone who wanted to speak in favor of the bill.
Yes.
All right, and that's going to be Erica Long
From Atlanta Public Schools.
You wave? Okay.
Yeah.
All right, thank you. All right, so we've got two motions do pass, and it had to be do pass by substitute. Representative Mathiak, do you want to?
Pass by substitute.
All right, second. Okay, all right, thank you. So we have a do pass by substitute by Representative Mathiak and second by Chairman Irwin. All in favor, please say aye. Well, any discussion? I'm getting too eager here. All right, no discussion. All right, all in favor, please say aye. Any opposed? All right, Senator, your measure passes.
Thank you very
If you could wait
much.
just a couple of minutes, we can get you a rules form. So if you
Okay.
could just stand by for just a moment. All right,
Excellent.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. All right, our next item we're going to take up is going to be SB 151. And Senator Beach, if you'd like to come up, if you'd like to bring Pro Tem Jones, you're welcome to do that as well.
Just gonna have a substitute
All right,
to present to you.
thank you.
I would like to give you a little bit of background if I could, Madam Chair.
Of course.
for the committee.
Yes, and if you don't mind, we,
Yeah.
the senators probably have better audio than we.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
do. Thank you.
And then I'll let Speaker Pro Tem Jones speak to the substitute. But, you know, I've been in North Fulton for 32 years. And when I first moved there, there were 3 cities, Roswell, Alpharetta, and Mountain Park, which is not much of a city. It's a town. But you fast forward to today and there's 6 cities and there's no unincorporated Fulton County. There was unincorporated Fulton when I moved there 32 years ago. Now there's none. You've got the city of Sandy Springs, Johns Creek, and Milton. When you look at Fulton County, it's a county like no other in the U.S. It's 91 miles long. You have South Fulton, you have Atlanta in the middle, and then you got North Fulton. And from a geographic standpoint, it's very different. And what this bill does is simply create a North Fulton Development Authority. And why is that important? I go around as chairman of economic development, I used to talk about 3 economic engines in our state: Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport, the busiest airport in the world, the World Congress Center, we got the World Cup coming, Super Bowl, convention business, and then the Port of Savannah. I would now add a 4th economic engine. That's the Georgia 400 corridor. When you look at Georgia 400, you've got 900 technology companies. You got the fintech business. You've got all kind of businesses in healthcare up the 400 corridor. And we as a state would not be building new roads, $4 billion of new roads, northbound and southbound on Georgia 400, if we didn't believe in the 400 corridor. So that's why I'm bringing this. I think that we need a tool in our toolbox to continue to grow North Fulton. Nothing against Fulton County, but I think their sights are set on South Fulton, and I want to make sure that North Fulton is taken care of. So it's a tool in our toolbox. And when you look at North Fulton, the 6 cities, it would be the 5th largest county in the state, 388,000 population. So it's a big economic engine for us, and we need to have self-control of what we've done. We've created those cities to have that, and now I want to create a development authority. And I'll turn it over to Speaker Pro Tem Jones on the committee side.
Well, thank you, Mr. Senator. So I appreciate Senator Beach initiating this discussion, and after spending a lot of time speaking with the mayors in North Fulton and Fulton schools and both the superintendent and the board members, I talked to, including Senator Beach, the senators, some of the senators representing North Fulton, House members representing North Fulton, and lobbyists from 7 lobbying firms representing $465,000 that was hired by the Development Authority in opposition to the original bill. I developed 3 substitutes, and this is the substitute that I'm bringing forward. And I want to make sure you have the correct LC number. LC 473627S. And what, as the senator mentioned, the 6 cities, one of which is very small, of those 6 cities, really 5 main cities, 2 are legacy cities, Alpharetta and Roswell. They have their own development authority. All cities in Georgia have that right to create their own development authority. And so what I sought to do in the substitute is it does not create a new development authority, but what it does do is it defines a massively municipalized county, not my words, it was Ledge Council, that essentially restricts the legislation to Fulton only, and it restricts the reach of the Fulton County Development Authority north of the city of Atlanta limits if a municipality in North Fulton chooses to do that via an ordinance. So as an example, Alpharetta has its own development authority. It's a very successful, sophisticated city that may or may not decide that they want to handle any development authority incentives, activities through their existing development authority. If the three newer cities that have been formed in the last 20 years, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, or Milton, want to create their own development authority, they have that right. If they want to partner with the Fulton Development Authority, they have that right. What the substitute does is it absolutely honors local control. I did not want to, as I looked at different alternatives, I did not want it to affect the Atlanta or the 8 cities in South Fulton, because I think the legislators that represent those areas should make the decision as to whether they would want to adopt something similar to this or not. I know Atlanta has its own development authority. If they want to partner with the Fulton Development Authority, great. If they don't want to, that's up to them, and they're welcome to bring their own legislation. But this, in the last, I really see this as just the next one more iteration of making sure that Fulton County works for everybody. Back in 2016, I partnered with the senator again and did a revision to T-SPLOST and MARTA that resulted in, I felt very strongly that Atlanta should be able to do what they want. Atlanta wanted to spend more on MARTA. They wanted anywhere from a half penny to a penny. So I revised the legislation so that resulted in Atlanta having 1.5% MARTA. North Fulton and South Fulton did not want that, and they are treated as a separately from the city of Atlanta with regard to T-SPLOST decisions and MARTA. And so that is what the bill does. The Section A defines it. The legislation is only pertaining to Fulton. Section B gives the cities at North Fulton self-control with regard to development authorities. And Section C makes it clear that nothing in this short bill would affect any prior agreements, any bond payments, and anything that is pre-existing. And in fact, if this bill is signed by the governor, nothing changes until or if one of the cities in North Fulton chooses to opt out of the Fulton County Development Authority. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions.
All right, thank you, Senator, and thank you, Madam Pro Tem. All right, so at this time, committee members, do you have any questions for the bill's author? Or the substitute's author? All right, Representative Dawson, please go ahead with your question.
Good morning. Be curious to hear, as we've moved forward with this piece of legislation with the county, what's been the position of the county on this?
Sure. And I hope you will hear from them. I did want to point out one thing that I thought was important in constructing this. Prior to the incorporation, the final incorporation of South Fulton, to the city of South Fulton and the 3 cities in North Fulton, in my opinion, there was a greater need for Fulton County development, much greater need, because they had no other way to create a development authority because they weren't incorporated. Once they were incorporated, all of the cities, including the 8 in South Fulton, they're responsible for zoning and planning, not the county. The county provides very important services that those of us who live in Fulton are appreciative of, including courts and tax commissioner, all the different services that counties all over Georgia supply. But it seems like a disconnect to have you have one representative from Fulton Schools, one representative from APS on the Development Authority. The other 7 are appointed by county commissioners all over the state, county commissioners who have zero authority or input into zoning and planning, other than sewer and water. I mean, they don't. And so additionally, I did look at where the 9 current representatives who are on the board of the Development Authority live. At best, three, one might live on the edge of Atlanta and Sandy Springs, but two live in North Fulton. The rest are in Atlanta. And I just don't think that's representative of North Fulton. And that's, again, something for Atlanta and South Fulton cities to determine for themselves. But I hope we will hear from them as well.
Good. One more question, if I may. So I read the original legislation, which actually called for a new development authority in North Fulton, each city having an appointed person, and then the authority as a whole, those appointed from the cities appointing an additional one. How do we envision this? You know, if we use our imagination, what may be the next steps from the municipalities? Do we know? Or is it right now we're saying we just want to see them with the ability to break, or this breaks them free of the Fulton County Development Authority?
So I spoke with most of the mayors and took their input, and they're comfortable with this. And I don't know that we know what the next step will be. For example, in 19 years, those three newer cities, 19, 20 years, have not created their own. They may choose not to. They may choose to, in which case they may choose to opt out of the Fulton County Development Authority. It doesn't preclude there ever from being a North Fulton Development Authority, but I know from the school board's perspective and the city's perspectives from the people I spoke with, they're comfortable with sort of determining their own destiny at this point. And, you know, better to have all of the appointments from a city than to have one at this point.
Good. One final question or comment, and I'll yield. When it comes to the city of South Fulton, I represent 6 of those 8 municipalities. So I think this may be something that they'll want to entertain as well, right? We, in my city, we already have this. So let's hear from the county and other parties, but thank you all for considering this. And I think the amendment is way more palatable than the original proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Dawson. Whip Park, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Speaker Pro Tem, likewise, I appreciate the substitute. Just had 1 or 2 questions just to clarify. So essentially, if the city passes a resolution limiting the developmental authority, the North Fulton Development, they would not be able to take any action within that city. And that's all this legislation does.
That's correct.
Only other question I had was with respect to tax abatements. Would there be any sort of unintended consequences there? Or again, because you're really demonstrating a lot of local power or deference to cities with respect to local power, it's still up to their determination by resolution as to whether or not they would want a tax abatement to continue or not.
Well, contracts, and Senator would know this better, but contracts that have already been entered into would be unaffected by
Yes, ma'am.
this. So it would only be going forward. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Whip Park. Representative Clark, please go ahead with your question.
Okay, I just wanted to make a motion at the proper time that the substitute to Senate Bill 151 do pass.
Okay, all right. We've got a couple of speakers prior to that, but thank you so much. All right. All right, let's see. Representative Crawford, do you have a question as well? All right, please go ahead.
Yes, thanks. I have a question. And Madam Pro Tem, thank you for bringing this bill. I do have a question. Should the development authority be created, what specific metrics would be placed or put in place to determine how effective the authority actually is?
So this doesn't create a new authority.
Okay.
So it in fact, it doesn't change current law, which allows any municipality to create its own. That would be determined by current law. And so all it does is provide the existing cities north of the city of Atlanta to opt out by a resolution of the passed by the city, by a city.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Crawford. All right, we do have a few people that signed up to speak. Jessica Corbett, if you come to the podium over here. There we go. All right, thank you so much.
Good morning. I'm Jessica Corbett, Director of External Affairs for Fulton County. I really just wanted to answer one question. The Board of Commissioners had taken a position of opposition to the original form of the bill. However, we very much would like to see the text of the bill the Speaker Pro Tem has offered. One of the concerns the board expressed was ensuring that there's representation from the county and the school board whose taxes would be abated, as well as the cities. So that was, just wanted to communicate that and look forward to working with the Speaker Pro Tem and sponsor on this bill. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Ms. Corbett. Thank you for being here. Kwanzaa Hall, are you here this morning? Yes. All right, good. Come on up here to the podium and tell us who you are and who you're representing, please.
Yes, good morning. I'm Kwanzaa Hall, Chairman of the Development Authority of Fulton County, former school board member, city councilman, Fulton County Planning Commissioner, and Congressman. It's good to be here, Speaker Pro Tem Jones, Senator, members of the committee. I'm surprised to even be standing here. Just a month ago, we were caught flat-footed by, our lobbyists saying that there's legislation on the floor, SB 151, that's going to basically derail all the 50 years of work that the Development Authority of Fulton County has done. Now, our authority, as it was mentioned earlier, helped to really spur on, and it was the golden goose for many of the cities that were created. They didn't have economic impact, and we created that impact not as much in Milton, but in Johns Creek for sure, and in Sandy Springs. And I remember when Eva Galambos created the city, we were working very closely. I remember back when Milton was created and Johns Creek. So we've been a part of this conversation, at least people like me, members of our board. I was nominated for the board by one of the Fulton County Commissioners. And then after our chairman passed away back in 2023, I was nominated by Senator Beach to be vice chair. And I was, pleased with that appointment, and I was excited to be a member, and it's been great. I love economic development. My council district was downtown, Midtown, Old Fourth Ward, Emmett Park, places that many of you hang out and have your offices in, and you take your children on weekends, the Beltline. So, to be a part of the entire county's economic development engine was a true blessing in disguise. And I've been, into this completely. I've only been a chairman for a short period of time. When Senator B said he was going to step down, he nominated me to be chairman, and it was unanimous by the entire body. And, we sent him off and wished him, well wishes. We were excited about his next chapter and never thought we would see a bill surprise us from our former chair. So we've been kind of caught flat-footed, and we needed a little help to figure out our relationships down here, because we haven't really been dealing in the state in that capacity. But also what we discovered is, we have worked with the mayors. We just dedicated a $500 million deal in Johns Creek, working very closely with Mayor Bradbury, the Swift School in Roswell. And I've got a long list. We'll make sure we share them all with you. Tons of projects that we've done in North Fulton in the last 2 years. We've been working really, really hard to deliver. And, 15 cities, but we have a team that has been doing this for years. They're savvy, they know the staff, they know the lay of the land. Even when we have issues, we defer to the city. We have Mayor Mike Bacher on our board. Many of you may know him. He's very detail-oriented. He's our treasurer. And Mayor Bacher always makes sure that he would reach out to mayors. If we ever had any consternation about issues, he would reach out. The most recent one was in Sandy Springs. He reached out to Mayor Rusty Paul. We held it right on the spot. Waited, it came back, we voted on it, ultimately didn't pass through DCA, but it was one of those projects that we didn't want to step on the toes of the city. And we do that as a practice, in law and in practice. So we've been very committed to this relationship. I'd like to acknowledge our other board member, Erica Long here, our executive director, Sarah Elizabeth Langford, and she may want to say a word as the executive director. If it's fine for her to join me, would you like for her to be on the list later? Either way. Okay.
We have a very robust schedule, so probably be on the list later.
Yeah, and in terms of facts and figures, I've got a laundry list of projects, and I won't bore you with all of them, but I'll give you just a few of them. First, we have a very, very strong balance sheet. Our audit was completed in 2023. We have another one that will be underway and be completed by the middle of this year. Let me just grab a couple of these points. Just in North Fulton alone, we've retained more than 14,500 jobs, created 2,500 new full-time jobs and over 3,000 construction jobs, generated more than 1.4 billion in capital investment, added nearly 77 million in new net tax revenue, 42 million to the county itself last year. So we don't use taxpayer dollars. We have to be very, very savvy in our negotiations with developers to ensure that they, one, meet the lay of the land for the local community, that they work with the cities, and then that they're meeting the mandate to be able to deliver on a project. And sometimes they just don't deliver. So we have more groups that come to us that actually can't get over the finish line. It takes about 4 different measures for us to vote on. 2 are the inducement and the final resolution, but it has to go to the Board of Assessors, final closing, and they just don't make it. So we try to be supportive. We understand developers are trying to make a difference in our community, doing warehouses, data centers, multifamily, well stars projects. We do schools, we do everything you can think of. So we've been, we're the super agency of Fulton County. And we really have been the lifeblood generating growth in this county for 50 years. And many of you may have known Bob Shaw. He was one of my mentors. He was one of the great leaders of this body. C. Clay Powell, he was another leader. We had phenomenal leaders of this organization that I think their legacy would be almost trampled on if we were not to continue to honor the great work of this body. I really respect the hard work of, that Senator Beach has put in on the body. He served for at least 7 or 8 years. And we never heard anything about this until now. We've always been, focused on the entire county. I spent a lot of time on Old Milton Parkway. Far more than y'all would ever imagine. I go to North Point. So I'm up that way. I'm not like a South Side guy. I grew up in Southwest Atlanta, but the focus is really being a person who can go from Chattahoochee Hills, Palmetto, all the way to Milton and still come back around. And that's really what we need in leadership. Our board is comprised of 3 people from the north. One is Sandy Springs, one is Alpharetta, basically Bob Ellis's appointment, and the other is Bridget Thorne's appointment and Dana Barrett. So we have a really diverse group. They have different voices. Sometimes our initiatives that come from the north, and Senator Beach will attest to this, can get pushed back from the appointees from the north. So we've been trying to be very thoughtful, and we never, run over people. We let everyone talk. We have great decorum in our meetings. We work in a collaborative fashion. And I would just, if nothing more, give us some time to study. We haven't seen the substitute. We haven't even seen it, so we don't know. And that's no offense to anyone. We know it's been a holiday weekend, and there's a lot going on. We found out about this one day before the vote. The first voting committee, then no courtesy or anything in that regard. Then we had the other votes, the rules committee, and then it went to the floor vote, and Senator Halpern helped us at least to kind of speak about it. We had one relationship with her, but we didn't know who to call. We got caught flat-footed because we never thought we would be having to deal with a measure like this. I know the lieutenant governor, and I know a few people, but I know he and Senator Beach have a great relationship. There was no use in even trying to fight the last day on that measure, right? So we're in the House, and we had to figure out what to do in the House, and how do we don't know Chair Camp, haven't spoken to the the Speaker Pro Tem, haven't spoken to the Speaker. How do you figure this out? And so, our team, our staff have been scrambling, and I just want to say, we love the work we do, and we want to continue to do this work. The numbers don't lie. We continue to deliver outstanding results to the entire county. I do acknowledge that there may be places where I spoke to many of the mayors, and they said, we really want to do more, Kwanzaa, but we've got to figure it out. So that's why I think a study committee could help us to kind of close the gap. We've been intended on hiring someone anyway to focus on the gaps that we have, and this is one of those. We just had a retreat 3 weeks ago, and we spoke about the things we need to do going forward. Our next meeting will be in the North Fulton, and we'll go on a tour of sites that we've done. So we're committed to, a holistic view. And really, sometimes we have projects that are in Atlanta and in Alpharetta. We have groups that come to us like Wellstar. They need help all over. We have groups like the YMCA, and we solve for that. There's no other group that really can do it that way. We're the super agency. But also, if Alpharetta has a deal that we can't solve for, we allow them to do it. If Union City wants to do a deal, we allow them to do it. Same for Roswell. We work in a collaborative fashion. There's no fight. So I'd love to just have a study of nothing else, and really appreciate you giving me a time to speak on this. Again, we were caught flat-footed, and apologize for any errors that we've made or missteps, but we thank you all for your hard work and your service. Thank you for hearing me.
Thank you, Mr. Hall. Representative Clark, do you have a question for Mr. Hall? All right, please go ahead.
I'm just wondering how much you have spent on lobbyists to fight this bill.
We've only expended about $20,000 so far. We have 30-day outs in our contracts. So our contracts allow us to continue. You all know the session doesn't end on sine die. It ends whether the governor votes on it 40 days later. And then sometimes we're in a biennial, you can go into the next year and still be dealing with the bill. That was what we were advised, just, hey, we don't have any Republican support or Republican lobbyists on our team, because we were really defending against the bills that had come out from Democrats last cycle. So the last thing we thought was that we'd hear a bill from our own former chair. So, and no offense, I'm just saying I understand how people can change their perspectives, but we have not, done anything to try to expend more dollars than we needed to, because we didn't know who to call. We would have rather to have given those dollars to groups like the North Fulton Chamber or somewhere else, where we vet these types of groups all the time to support marketing efforts that will grow the tax base.
Thank you. You have another question from Representative Thomas. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question is typically one of the terms that are thrown around down here are local control, and this seems like to me to be a local control measure. I know typically you all don't like the General Assembly getting involved in your business, but I would also say that whenever it's time to let people in an area, which it appears the representatives from that area support this measure, that we generally are supportive of it. Why are you taking an opposition to allowing people, the locals in that area, to decide what's best for their fate or their future, instead of it being run out of Atlanta?
No, thank you. It's definitely not run out of Atlanta, I promise you. A lot of times I'm having my meetings at Avalon Hotel.
County, then.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Right, good point. Well, I'll say we have not seen the substitute except for 5 minutes ago, pretty much. So we didn't have a chance to really review it. Our legal team has to kind of look through it and just make sure there are no unintended consequences. I think that's only fair. I do believe I'm a local school board member, city councilman, zoning board member. I definitely get the point that we need to have no room between us, no distance between us and any mayor or any council member who wants to say, hey, I've got a problem with this project. So we're open to this type of dialogue, but we just haven't had a chance to review or even discuss it.
Thank you for responding to the question.
All right, thank you, Representative Chair Thomas, excuse me. All right, next question for you. Are you still willing to answer a couple of questions?
I'm enjoying this. I haven't been up here in a long time.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, I think we have one more. Whip Park. If you go ahead, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chairman Hall, thank you for your service. I would certainly want to make sure that you'll have the appropriate amount of time for your lawyers to review, to your point, to ensure that there are no unintended consequences. As a chair of the North Fulton Development Authority, do you recall any instances in which y'all have taken action that's caused any cities in North Fulton to, have any consternation, any sort of pushback? I know you mentioned Johns Creek saying, y'all investing $500 million, I think it was, in Johns Creek, and I'm sure y'all have a lot of longstanding relationships. I've certainly advocated for a lot of local control with respect to my home county of Gwinnett, but with respect to legislation one, I do appreciate a lot of the prior concerns being addressed by the substitute, by the Speaker Pro Tem. But of course, at the same time, I want to make sure that if we're passing legislation, that it is to address an issue. So are you aware of any issues in North Fulton that would necessitate legislation that would empower the city or the cities in North Fulton even more so than they already have?
Great. And, I know this is a difficult political issue, just being honest. We all know there's a lot of other, side things related to this big idea. We have not had any issues that I can think of. The Sandy Springs issue, we actually referred it back to the city. Haven't heard anything with Mayor Bradbury. He did text me last night from Taiwan, 1:00 in the morning, said he wanted to hear what the impacts could be to Metley and to Boston Scientific, two very significant projects and job nodes. Sandy Springs, we had that one issue with Rusty Paul, and we referred it back. Haven't heard any, obviously not a lot of development in Milton. The Avalon deal was before I came, but I know there was some back and forth with that issue. And, you know, the mayor at the time, I think it may have been Mayor Gilvin, but it may have been before him. No, the city was upset that the deal got done without their inclusion. But that was, you know, North Fulton leadership involved in that conversation, not like the board itself. And now that I recognize the history, you know, we have board members appointed by commissioners. But just because a person is in a certain area does not mean the relationship is as strong as you might think with local leadership. And that's what I have kind of tasked our staff with. We need to have relationships regardless of the board members, because you can't count on one former mayor knowing the current mayor. And that's where there's sometimes this conflict. You know, big egos, big people in the room, they can't call each other. But a staff member calling is humble outreach. So that's the only time I've seen it, are those two, and one was under my tenure and I wasn't chair at the time.
Thank you.
Biggest development in certainly modern history in North Fulton, and is a good example of why this would have, if this had been in place, Alpharetta could have opted out of the Development Authority, could have taken that with their own, they could have offered incentives with their own development authority. And I just want to make it clear, I'm not bringing this because I have any particular problems with the Fulton County Development Authority. I didn't create City of Milton because, you know, of some issues, or there were many issues with the county. It was more just a better governance structure. And I would say that this could bring about ultimately a better governance structure, as opposed to having 7 appointees that are non-elected of county commissioners representing a county that represents 10% of the state's population. If I took half of the counties in Georgia, starting from the smallest county to the largest county, I would be halfway through 159 counties before I would have a population as large as Fulton County. And so putting that decision-making in these smaller units of governance, to me, is just a better structure. But it was certainly not intended as any disrespect to the good work that the Fulton County Development Authority has done in the past, and I'm convinced will continue to do in the future. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you all. All right, thank you, Mr. Hall. Appreciate you being here today.
Okay. I have
Your
one last
testimony.
word, but thank you. I can't speak anymore. Appreciate you at your time. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so at this time, we did have a motion made a little earlier. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm terribly sorry. We do have one more speaker. Chairman Chuck Martin. I apologize. Yes.
Madam Chair, and thank you, committee, for allowing me a minute, and I will just take a minute to join the pro tem in support of this legislation. My brief history in North Fulton County started in 1961. But no, all seriousness, my elected history started in North Fulton in January 1993 as a council member, then mayor, and then getting to represent the good people of Alpharetta, Milton, Johns Creek, and Roswell in this body for the last 23 years. And I agree with the pro tem in saying this, that if the Fulton County Development Authority is doing good work where they're wanted, they should continue that work. But I also stand here before you and tell you that the city councils in Roswell and Alpharetta were elected to do things within their corporate bounds. And nothing in this legislation says that Alpharetta or Roswell will opt to have the Fulton County Development Authority not operate in their corporate bounds. But if they decide to do so, respectfully, I don't think there's anybody in the state legislature that sits over there with us, myself and 179 of my friends, or 56 senators, that should tell them they can't. So I simply stand here before you today with 30 plus years experience representing the folks in North Fulton, and would suggest to you that the passage of Senate Bill 192 by this substitute gives absolute control to the elected officials in the cities in North Fulton County without requiring them to do anything except operate in the best interest of the people they represent. And with that, Madam Chair, I'll conclude. If there's a question, I'll answer it. Otherwise, I'll get out of the committee's way and let you move on.
All right, thank you, Chairman Martin. Does anyone have a question for Chairman Martin? All right, certainly, you are excused. Thank you very much for being here today. Representative Clark.
I would just like to make a motion that the substitute do pass.
All right, thank you. We have a motion for due pass for the substitute. Any seconds?
Second.
All right, second. All right, any discussion? All right, Whit Park, please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, in my reading of the bill, I understand where the author and the Speaker Pro Tem is coming from. My only concern is I would like the Fulton County development, the folks in Fulton to have more time to have the bill properly vetted. Would it be possible at this time to make a motion to either table? And if not, or if a motion to table fails, just to be clear, I may still vote no to file a minority report to preserve again the appropriate amount of time that the North Fulton Development Authorities may need to ensure that they're comfortable with this bill moving forward.
All right, so Whit Park, to be clear, you have a motion, you put a motion on the table to table this.
Yes, ma'am.
Correct. All right, do we have a second? Second by Representative Holland. All right, this is a motion to table. So it does take precedence over any discussion regarding this motion to table. All right, all those in favor of tabling this, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, let's do a show of hands. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, all the nays. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, all right, so the motion does fail. And you may certainly file a minority report if this measure does pass in a moment. So thank you. All right, so we do have a motion do pass by substitute on the table. All in favor, say aye. All right, all opposed?
No.
All right, let's do a show of hands. All in favor? All right, all opposed? All right, motion does pass. All right, thank you so much. Thank you, everyone who was here for Fulton County today. Senator Halpern, you had double duty today, didn't you? All right, thank you. All right, so our last bill today, and thank you, committee. We don't only have this robust duration of a meeting, so thank you so much for hanging in and doing the good work. All right, so we have SB 260, which is a substitute. So Senator Williams, I almost wanted to call you Representative Williams.
I'll bring my former city councilman.
You can bring someone with you, yes, sir.
Thank you.
I think we recognize him as well. All right, if you don't mind, Senator, once you get comfortable, if you can read it's the LC number, because I believe you have a substitute as well.
Yes, ma'am. This is Senate Bill 260, LC number 620184S. Everybody have that one?
That is what I have in front of me. Does everyone have that
Good. Thank you.
LC number? Wonderful.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity to be here before you this morning. What we have is trying to straighten out a little issue down in Millersville, Baldwin County. When people think about Central State Hospital, they think about one building on a campus sitting there, but that's not what we have in Millersville. We have 2,000 acres and right at 100 buildings sitting in Millersville that are abandoned. These are state buildings, state property that happens to be in Millersville, Baldwin County that used to house Central State Hospital. Back in its heyday, it was about 15,000 residents. And this was a city within itself. They had their own police department. They had their own fire department. They had their own post office with their own zip code. They had their own utilities, water department. It was a city within itself. Ambulance service, just everything. When Central State Hospital was closed down because of the Olmstead Act And back in, I guess, the 80s, when Central State was completely shut down, all of these buildings became vacant and just sitting there and allowing to rot and decay, and a complete eyesore. And there's also some old prisons on the property there also. They're grown up and covered with kudzu trees growing on the roofs. We do have the Powell Building that is on the National Historical Register. And this is what is the face of Central State Hospital. Very beautiful building. Back in 2012, under Governor Nathan Deal, my predecessor, Representative Rusty Kidd, that got together with some people and formed the Central State Hospital Redevelopment Authority. So this development authority started trying to repurpose some of these buildings and properties in that area. And they had met with some success, and little things were happening. And what Milledgeville also had was the world's largest kitchen. There was a kitchen there with the world's largest chiller. This kitchen prepared 15,000 meals for those residents 3 times a day. Can you imagine an operation? And they distributed those meals throughout all the buildings. So when all of this shuts down, all of these buildings are vacant. So this authority has worked mighty hard trying to get these buildings. And the main objective of the authority was to, number one, get these properties on the tax roll, create jobs, and create some affordable housing. Now, we had a very good board. Former Senator Johnny Grant was on the board. We had 2 bankers. We had a couple of business people there in the community. They had sold the houses, and they have over $1 million sitting in their bank account right now. They have leased out some of the properties, and they have lease rental revenue coming in every month. But all of a sudden, the dissension in the community, because I think somebody thinks that somebody's got something that they didn't get, some jealousy or something, I don't know. But it became very controversial in our local community, and it's on the front page of the newspaper constantly. And it's created dissension in the community. And what has happened, 6 members of that board would not be reappointed. They just walked off. We've had enough. I've asked other people and local business leaders in the community if they would come forward and if they would serve on the board. And they tell me, no way. I don't want my name on the front page of the local paper being dragged through that I didn't do something properly. What has happened, this board had created a real estate committee. Now, this real estate committee was members of the board, and you would have other people come, and we had local real estate marketing the properties and buildings. And there would be people showing an interest in some of the buildings and properties. They would meet with the real estate committee and tell them which piece of property they were interested in. The committee would tell them, give us your business plan. Number one, we want to put the property back on the tax roll. We want to create some jobs. And we want to create some affordable housing. And if you fit in that criteria, give us your business plan so we can see. They're kind of like your banker. You go to your banker to borrow money to open a business, and you share with him your business plan. But remember, that business plan is confidential. It doesn't show up on the front page of the newspaper that Rick Williams is going to buy property out there because he's going to build X, Y, and Z. Then all of a sudden I've opened myself up for competition. So you have to have some confidentiality when you're doing this kind of stuff. And some people don't understand that. I do. I've lived in Milledgeville since 1969. I graduated from high school there. I love that community. I served as a county commissioner. I served as chief registrar for 16 years. My family lives there. Former Representative Vance served on city council there for 26 years. He was there when all of this was formed and all of this was done. I'll be glad to take any questions at this time, or if you have questions or comments, I'll be glad to take them.
Well, if you don't mind, well, could you tell us what your bill does? You told us a lot about
Okay,
what
okay.
the, what the
What my
commission is,
bill-
but you haven't
okay,
told us what
I'm
your
sorry.
bill does.
All
Thank
right,
you.
what this bill does is creates a new committee of 4 members. Only 3 voting members. These members are going to be appointed by the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker. And state properties will appoint a member to this board also. So the original legislation, I kind of got ahead of myself. It started with not less than 7 and not more than 11 members. So when you got that many people trying to get together on what someone can do with a piece of property or develop something, it bogs down on getting a quorum there. Having this smaller board will allow them to meet and advertise legally, of course, and it's going to put them under the Department of Community Affairs. So it's pretty much going to be like a state agency. Right now, this board is being hit with Freedom of Information, open records request. So they have to hire an attorney to answer lawyers and stuff. So out of the money that they're making, they're having to pay lawyers. By being under the state agency, they will have legal representation afforded them like any other state agency. It'll actually be under the Attorney General's office. So I think that's pretty much what it gives. It's pretty much the same bill as what originally was. It's just reducing the number of people on the authority from 7-11 down to 4 members. And they will answer, they'll be audited and they'll have to submit their audit findings to the state. They will be under the same jurisdiction as other state agencies. So what I'm asking this committee to do is to help me get this and move this right along. It passed right out of the Senate. Of course, it'll have to go back for an agree-disagree because meeting with the governor's office and others, and they wanted to put it under the Department of Community Affairs. And so there's a couple of little changes in the substitute.
All right. Thank you, Senator Williams.
Did that clear it up, Madam Chair?
That was
Thank you.
very helpful. You do have a few questions. I had a question though from reading the bill. Who owns the property? Who is the legal owner of Central State Hospital buildings and grounds at this point?
The state of Georgia.
The state of Georgia. All right. Thank you. Chairman Cooper, believe you have a question? You wave? Oh, that was the question? Were we thinking alike today? Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Cooper. Sorry. Chairman Thomas, do you have a question? Or were we all thinking alike this morning?
I'm going to go ahead and waive, but I'm convinced because you brought Representative Vance down here today. So that was a good move on your part there, Senator. I'd like to see a good House rep.
Well,
So-
thank you. Don't forget, I was a House rep too now.
I know that's the reason why I wasn't surprised you rolled out the presentation on the bill right out of the gate. We've trained you well and sent you over there. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for Chairman Thomas. All right, Whip Park, you're our next person. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Senator Williams, good to see you again, sir.
You too.
Just a few questions. So all of this property, including, I see on line 42, all the real property adjacent there too, all of that is owned by the state currently?
Some of the property has been transferred to Central State Redevelopment. And because they're holding it, because there's pending contracts on some of the property. There's pending sales on some of the property that are being held up that cannot be completed because the members were not reappointed and would not be reappointed, so they don't have a quorum to even hold a meeting.
So this is not, just to be clear, a transfer where the local folks have control of these properties that the state would then be taking over?
No, the state already owns the property. And like I said, some of it has been transferred to that Central State Redevelopment that is up for sale or lease. I'm trying to think, I'm sorry if I didn't answer the question.
Not at all, sir. So just another clarifying question then. Then does this bill provide greater authority to the state to better redevelop this area that it did not already have?
It actually would. And by being part of a state agency, they would be entitled to all the benefits of the state. And the state actually could help market and move it rapidly through getting, and sometimes time is of the essence on some of these buildings and some of the property sales so that somebody can get the property and go ahead and start developing it.
Two more quick questions, if I may, Madam Chair. One, what did the local folks think about this legislation? Are they comfortable and do they support this bill?
Well, we have some local people, and there was actually a poll on Facebook, and I think, and it's by a local historian. And overwhelmingly, I think 80% of the people polled were in favor of this. What some people's misconception is they think because the governor, lieutenant governor, and speaker will be making appointments, that they'll be picking people from Kalamazoo. I don't think that's going to be the issue. They're going to be picking local people that have an interest in our local community that's going to want to see these things succeed. What we've got, and I could have brought some pictures, and we do have the chairman of the county commission that is on the link that is eligible to testify if y'all would like him to. He's standing by. But I've received so many. And the former director, Mike Couch, answered the poll in favor of my legislation also.
Last question. Are there any term limits for those who would be appointed? And a follow-up, last one, if I may.
4 years.
4 years is, okay, so appointees could only serve a maximum of 4 years without.
Well, they can serve 4 years and be reappointed, but their term would expire every 4 years and they would be up for reappointment.
But there's no limit on how much they could be reappointed. Is that?
No, pretty much like the legislature. You keep getting elected, and like Chairman Martin was, say, 23, 26 years.
Right.
He's an institution.
Right. So no term limits, just.
No term limits. It's not term. No, it's not term limit.
Okay. I mean, again, to address some of the concerns some of the local folks may have with respect to control, given how central these properties are to the city, would you be open to some additional amendments? For example, ensuring that those appointed by for this new board would be required to come from the local area?
I would not be in favor of that. I don't want to tie the governor or lieutenant governor or speaker's hands. I would invite the city and the county to submit names of local people that they would like to see appointed to those people. And I'm sure they will be making, I can't speak for them, but I hope and feel sure that they will be appointing local people.
Is that in the legislation? Just because, of course, whoever may be the governor, all this changes.
All this could change, yes, sir.
So is that, where the cities submit names for consideration? Is that in this legislation?
No, but there's nothing to prohibit them from doing that.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rep. Park. Representative Dawson, please go ahead with your question.
Hey, thank you, Senator Williams, for how well thought out this is. Just had a simple question. Have we talked to Commissioner Christopher Nunn yet? I do think DCA is a great home for this. Just curious if the commissioner over there has weighed in on all this yet.
Who?
None at DCA. Did you mention this was going to Department of Community
He
Affairs?
has been consulted, yes, sir.
Good.
Now, DBHDD does have facilities that they're operating on this campus now, and it does not affect those.
Cool.
So I've even there is a 155,000 square foot hospital there, the Culver Kid Hospital. We have shown it, Representative Mathiak was with me when we showed it to the National VA, trying to get people to take it over, but they wouldn't because it was so outdated. I tried to get DBHDD to take it over. A lot of these buildings are so enormous. Now someone has gone and stole a lot of the copper out of it. Now the city has plans and they bought the old fire department out there at Central State Hospital. They're going to open up and put a fire truck there. And they're also buying the old police department. They're going to put a police precinct out there so we can get back and have police protection out there on those grounds.
Good. Thank you. I think DCA is a great home for this. Thanks for bringing this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you so much. All right, so it looks like our questions are exhausted. We have a number of individuals who have signed up to speak. All right, so we have to vacate this room in 24 minutes for someone else. So for that reason, let's do this. Let's say we've got 7 people. Oh, gracious. Let's do about 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes each. And I hate to limit it, but again, we are at the limitations of how long we have this room today. So the first person up is Representative Floyd Griffin Sr. So Representative Griffin, if you would go ahead.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and committee. But I am extremely disappointed that we're only going to have 24 minutes to speak on such a crucial piece of legislation that involves the city of Millersville and Baldwin County. And I have about 6 or 7 people here, and I'm not going to speak that long, but they are the meat and the backbone of what should be talked about today. Look, I was the mayor of Millersville also, okay? And I was in the Senate also, and now in this body. And I have served on 3 university boards. I have served on a national board, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. I have never been on any board where you have 3 individuals who's going to control what happens in Millersville. Look, I was born in Millersville. I lived about less than a half a mile from Central State Hospital. I understand that facility out there. And what the senator has done, he's gaslighting you all. Because there's a lot more going on with that. So I'm not going to talk too much because I need some other people to talk within this 24 minutes that's left. But what I can't, since I can't come back, I'm going to ask you all to table this bill until we have, my people can have an opportunity to really explain to you what's going on. Now, one other thing I want to mention. You see this document here? This is a document that I requested the Inspecting General to do an investigation of the board that he's talking about, because a number of those board members were and are appointed by the leadership, the governor, and et cetera. And there is alleged fraud, waste, and abuse. And some of those individuals who have served in this body, served in the body across the hall, are involved. And their names are mentioned in here to include the senator. Okay? So I don't want anybody to tell me that the inspector general is not looking at this. One thing about inspecting generals, and I served in the military for 23 years and served from the Pentagon on down. I understand how inspecting generals work. They don't make any public announcement that they are investigating. But I have met with the inspecting general and his deputy, and I know what's going on. So I'm going to stop talking now because I got 2 or 3 people that really, really need to speak to this committee. And I think Mary Demons, who do I have down there?
Mary Copeland for next, but I'd like to mention, just for decorum, it's pretty serious to create an allegation or speak an allegation against a House member or senator. For decorum's sake.
Well, it's in the document. Okay.
All right. Thank you. All right.
Could you request a copy of those documents? If there's allegations against another legislature member, pretty serious. I asked legal counsel.
Counsel. All right, thank you. All right, we will have consultation after. Thank you. All right, let's see.
Madam Chair, we're going to ask permission to go out of order if that's okay, because there's only a few of us that will have opportunity to speak.
Sure, can you state who you were and
Yes,
how you're involved in this?
Yes, my name is Matt Ressing, and I am an attorney. I'm a real estate attorney and a business attorney. I'm also a law professor. I've been a law professor in Milledgeville, Georgia, at Georgia College, at University of Georgia, and currently at Emory Law School. I am the one the senator is referring to that is apparently causing all the trouble, asking these questions, making open records requests. And I want you to understand, I do not labor under any misapprehensions about what this board is doing. I know exactly what the board is doing because I have researched it extensively. And in fact, Representative Griffin, I believe, has provided with you a packet. A lot of that has my information as well as my exhibits. It is extensively documented. I'm the one who made the request to Representative Griffin that this be investigated by the Inspector General. And I can also say the Inspector General is investigating because I have been asked to interview with the Inspector General. This is a very serious matter. This is not a question of jealousy. It is a question of corruption. It is a question of conflicts of interest and favoritism that have been happening at Central State for at least the past 6 months. And those problems have been caused almost exclusively by the members of the current board that were appointed by the governor, by Senator Williams at the time when he was a representative, and by the lieutenant governor when he was a senator. Those are the 6 board members that have been the majority that have sold this property under very suspicious circumstances over the past 6 months. The senator mentioned the idea of keeping business plans secret. There are no business plans. It's not a confidential business plan. People have been allowed to buy property on that campus without submitting any business plan. I know this because I made the open records request. If it was a confidential business plan, they would have to tell me that it was being withheld under the appropriate statute because it was confidential. That is not true. I have confirmed that they did not submit any business plan at all. The senator said that the purpose of this authority was to put property on the tax rolls. That is not correct. It doesn't say that anywhere in the statute. The purpose of this authority is to create jobs, job creation. And with all of these recent sales that were done by the majority of the current board, They did not submit any job creation estimates. The people that got these buildings didn't even talk about job creation. I'm not jealous. I own property on the Central State campus. I've had a front row seat to this entire thing. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm not being paid for this. I'm not representing the client. I'm here in my personal capacity because I can't look away. I am seeing this campus, which could be a crown jewel for Milledgeville, being handed off to people based on what I presume is favoritism or corruption, because they have no plan and they have not presented any job creation numbers. I don't have time to go into all of it, but I've extensively documented it. I absolutely do believe you should table this issue. I am happy to come back and talk extensively about it. What I would like to do, though, is turn things over to the former executive director, Mary DeMaine, who resisted this in her position as executive director, was threatened by Johnny Grant, who was the chair of the board and is related to Ken Vance, and was then essentially terminated, was forced out of her position for opposing this. So please understand, this is a very, very serious issue, and we are only skimming the surface. I'd like to allow Ms. DeMaine to go next.
Well, if you don't mind, I have a question.
Oh, yes, please.
This, I don't know if anyone else on the board does or not, on the committee. All these allegations have they been brought to the district attorney?
I've made all of my comments public. I have written about 6 different memos, all extensively documented. I've released them publicly in the press. So the district attorney is aware of this. And so is local law enforcement, and so is the inspector general.
And no local action has been taken?
I do not know at the moment whether there may be investigations happening at the local level, but I don't know.
All right.
May I respond to that question?
No.
Okay.
No, thank you. All right, I'm sorry, Whit Park, you have a question?
Yes.
I'm sure. So real quickly, so would it be your assertion that this legislation would essentially protect and make moot the ongoing investigation by the Inspector General?
I believe the intention of this legislation is to cover up what has happened at Central State for the past 6 to 8 months.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, so the next person you mentioned was Mary DeMaine, is that correct? All right.
Mary Demian.
Demian, I'm so sorry. All right.
Yeah, so my name is Mary Demian. I was the chair executive director from February 2024 until I resigned, like I was pressured to resign on December. 2 weeks when I started my job, I noticed there is like a lot of things going on. I start pointing and connecting the dots. And that took me to early October. I reached out to the Inspector General and I've been working with him since. There were never business plan presented. Always as like Mr. Williams, when he came to my office on December 5th and announced, he stated that Fickling Company, which is the dual agency that we like real estate agency we work with, is his friends. For that fact, we need to proceed and do what's on the table. In economic development words, we have to look what the potential project bring, what the impact study it bring. Central State, as you guys know, is 2,000 acres and had 200 buildings. Thousands of families who live below poverty line live around that. They live there, their livelihood depends on the Central State Hospital until it closed. So the authority was established to bring them job, to improve the economic. In the state, the prices was like deprived intentionally. Unfortunately, there is a lot I cannot talk about it. I cannot even make allegation to because there is investigation going on. I've been providing information as needed. So if you want to ask me, go ahead and I'm willing to answer.
I do not see any questions at this time. Thank you. Thank you for being here. All right, let's see. How are we going to get Zoom up? Media services? All right. Do we have Chair of the Baldwin County Commissioners, Andrew Strickland online? Mr. Strickland? Mr. Strickland, are you with us? All right.
Can you hear me, Madam Chairwoman?
Yes, I can. Thank you. I was having my fingers crossed that we'd get media services and you and all the stars lined up. So thank you for being with us today. Can
Well,
you
I appreciate you accommodating me and the committee members. Furthermore, I appreciate all the critical work you and the committee members do on behalf of the citizens of Georgia. While I'm the chairman of the Baldwin County Commission, I'm offering an opinion on SB 260 as the commissioner of the 4th District of Baldwin County and a concerned citizen. Perhaps many of you are aware the dire situation in Baldwin County as it relates to Central State Hospital. As Central State Hospital closed and shed nearly 12,000 jobs, our community of 45,000 people was devastated. While the U.S. Census Bureau shows that the poverty rate in the U.S. is about 11%, the poverty rate in Baldwin County is nearly double the national average at 21.4%. With a loss of jobs at Central State, and as it closed, our workforce dramatically depleted as they sought jobs elsewhere. The workforce issue is just one of many challenges for new economic development left in the wake of the closure. I understand, Madam Chairwoman, you're an alumni of Georgia Military College, a true gem of Milledgeville and Baldwin County, and perhaps you drove through the Central State campus. It is my hope that other committee members get an opportunity to see this campus as well. If you have not seen it, quite frankly, it's a gut check. 2,000 acres, 100 structures, many 4 and 5 stories tall. I heard someone estimate, because I don't think we can get an accurate number, nearly 1 million square feet of space. Much of it is abandoned and dilapidated blight. Ladies and gentlemen, my people, our people are hurting. I'm not ashamed to ask for help, and quite frankly, we cannot fix this problem alone, as you have heard testimony today. The problem is simply too big. Over the years and under the current board structure, it has made some progress, although limited. The current structure of a 9-member board has made scheduling and filling positions difficult. We need to narrow this board to improve efficiency and effectiveness. SB 260 does this. We need the support of the Department of Community Affairs. SB 260 ensures we will get this help. We need dependable legal counsel with the State Attorney General. SB 260 ensures we get that help. Senator Williams has drafted a bill that will ensure the highest levels of our state government are making appointments to the board. And I know Governor Kemp, Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones, and Speaker John Burns know this issue well and are committed to helping us in Baldwin County. The help we so desperately need is before you now in SB 260. I encourage you to pass this bill out of committee and help us deliver results to the good people of Baldwin County. God knows they are deserving. I believe in my heart that the time for Baldwin County is now. This bill has the potential to help us turn the tide on poverty, joblessness, and finally spur the economic development our people are so deserving of. I cannot encourage you enough to pass SB 260 to give us the tools we need to rebuild and contribute to the state in the way I know the people of Baldwin County can. I would like to thank Senator Williams for his great work on SB 260 and his dedication to the people of Baldwin County and our great state of Georgia. Committee members, thank you for listening, and know that I'm truly grateful for the time you have spent on an issue so important to the people that I represent. Chairwoman, thank you for allowing me to testify to your committee members. I'd also like to thank you for accommodating me due to a scheduling conflict. Additionally, as I've witnessed some of the testimony today, the case for SB 260 was just laid out in front of you. Quite frankly, we had an opportunity to have local appointments to this board, and you see what's happened. And it's a disaster. And you know, I don't know what's true and what's not true. It's a bunch of allegations, but the bottom line is this. To me, we need to pass this bill so that we can ensure that our people get the tools that they need to move forward. Our people, again, are hurting, and we have to make progress. And so with that, I'll yield back, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for you being with us via Zoom. I do understand I was an EMT in Putnam County for a number of years, And it's, you know, you really can't swap shifts last minute. So thank you for your being here with us today. Does anyone have any questions for the chair of the county commission? All right, thank you so much. We appreciate your time with us.
Thank you.
All right, looks like we've got time probably for one more person. Who would like to go up? If you don't mind, state your name and your role.
My name is Dr. Joycelyn Nelson, and I am on the board, currently on the board at Central State Hospital. Thank you, Ms. Chairwoman, committee.
Gosh, yeah, you're probably gonna have to get a little closer to it. Your
Okay.
computer might be, or the computer that's in the way. Hang on.
Can I close it?
Yes, you certainly may.
Thank you.
So you can get a little closer. Sorry.
Okay, thank you, no problem. To the chairwoman, committee members, members of the House, and all under the sound of my voice, thank you for your time and attention. My name is Dr. Joycelyn Nelson, and I come before you today not only as a board member of Central State Hospital Local Redevelopment Authority for more than a decade, but as also as a concerned citizen. And Central State Hospital has offered our community some revitalization and redevelopment. I stand here today in shock and disappointment from Senator Williams' bill, as he is proposing to remove local representation from the Development Authority. This bill is not only an attack on local leadership, but is a betrayal. Simply that. And I can't understand why Senator Williams is even presenting this bill, because in December, he praised us for doing a great job. And then only today to have this happen. Again, when Senator Williams hasn't even held an open meeting or a town hall to understand or get or gather voices from our local people. And it's something that's disheartening, quite frankly. For years, our community has fought to ensure that the Redevelopment Authority at Central State benefits those who call Milledgeville and Baldwin County home. Local leaders, elected officials have appointed us and have worked tirelessly to attract businesses, create jobs, and preserve the history of this vital site. Stripping away our local representation means stripping away our ability to help shape our own future. And I also must mention the city of Milledgeville has provided support in excess of $1 million for this project over 7 years. Baldwin County has also provided funding. Senator Williams was elected to serve in the best interest of his constituents, yet this bill does quite the opposite. It hands control of our community and possibly the future of its community to possible outside interest, ignoring the people who will be affected most. I urge this body to reject any attempt to silence the voices of people of Milledgeville and Baldwin County. We deserve transparency. Thank you. And if there are any questions, I'll take them.
Well, I have a question.
I'm sorry.
How many people are currently on your board? And do you have enough people to make a quorum?
As Senator Williams stated, we had a total of 9 board members. They have since 6 of them have since submitted that they will not be reappointed. And he also stated that he's having problems finding people to actually serve on the board, but hasn't made a public statement, has not posted it in the newspaper, and quite frankly, hasn't asked some people that I know would love to serve on the board. So I don't think it's a problem of us having issues with people wanting to serve on the board. But if you are looking for specific people versus a broad swath of people, then probably so. But we need to open this up.
So right now, there are 9 board positions. There are 3 active members. What constitutes a quorum?
5.
5. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Are there any additional questions? It's either a yes or a no question. Well, if you have 3 members and 5 is a quorum, where's the complexity coming in?
So here's the complexity. There are 9 members of the board. 6 of those seats have expired, meaning that they, at the end of 2024, they were out, but they're still allowed to serve on the board. Okay. So in January, they all came together. In fact, they tried to amend their bylaws to give their chairman the power to convey property all by himself instead of 2 signatures. I objected at that point. And the reason I objected is because even though there were 8 people in the room that day, their bylaws say that expired seats do not count towards quorum. So the city and the county have reappointed their seats. However, the governor, the senator, and the representative had not. Meaning everything they tried to do at that January meeting, in my mind, was void. When I raised that quorum issue at the time, the chair threatened to have me expelled. He said, sit down and be quiet or I'm calling the cops. I
Okay.
think now they have realized that I was correct.
Okay, you're overstating my question. I understand that there's a lot of dysfunction going on, but my question was, do you have enough people to have a quorum? And I know you want to talk a lot. I get it, but that's okay. That was my only question. There are other people who have questions. So if we could have Ms. Nelson come back up, because there are 2 additional questions for her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Nelson. How long have you been without a quorum in your meetings?
As Mr. Rawson was trying to explain, there was a challenge as to if we had enough members that were reappointed to the quorum. So in our last meeting, which was held in February, we had a total of 7 people that were present. However, in the bylaws, it says that, or it states that if you have not been reappointed, then you technically cannot have a quorum. So again, as I stated, several of the board members had already asked not to be reappointed, but they continued on to serve until we could transition into other board members. So we haven't gotten those new board members in yet. The city just appointed Mrs. Cynthia Ward. And so and Mr. Griffin, Representative Griffin, has submitted his names to the governor as well. So with those 2 appointments, we should have a quorum.
One more question. Since you've not had a quorum, have you had, so you've not been able to do the business?
No, we cannot, it would be illegal for us not to conduct business without a quorum.
So with this bill, as it reads, I mean, you would be able to submit to the governor, lieutenant governor, or the speaker to fill the seat that you're currently at, and then you could continue your service to the correct.
Let me, and I apologize for shaking, but I have a disc herniation, so you have to, I apologize. But the way the current board is currently set up, the city of Milledgeville can appoint 2 members. The county can appoint 2 members, and the governor, the lieutenant governor, the state representative, and senator, the senator can appoint members. And I think that of those, you can also have 2, which would give you 9. But of course, we have to have an odd number. So the way that it's set up now, you still have local representation from the city as well as the county. But the way this bill is structured, the representatives will only come from state appointees, not local appointees. And I also need to mention again that the city has given this board $1 million to help support the efforts. So it's not like they're just they're investing their time, but they're also investing money as well because they want to see this project fulfilled as well. So again, this bill is so disappointing because it would take the appointments from the city of Milledgeville as well as the county commissioners out of having a voice on the board.
Thank you.
All right. So you're saying, you're testifying that the city of Milledgeville has given the Central State Hospital Board $1 million.
They have supported our efforts to the tune of $1 million. When we first got started, we didn't have a budget. We were not supported by the state in any way, shape, form, or fashion, other than giving us the power to repurpose these properties. So of course, as you know, sometimes, if you're going to have an executive director, if you're going to have legal consultation, you need money. So the city stepped in, and over the years, over 7 years, they have given given us $1 million. We have paid that money back. And so it was a loan, but they still stepped in to help us and give us a lifeline when we needed it. And I also want to mention that we do now have over 50 businesses on the property. We now have our own operating budget of over 1.3 million. And we are continuing and would love to continue to push forward. We want a partnership with the state, and that's what we've had before. We are team players. That's what we had before. This would eliminate that. And we love Central State. Central State has put kids through school. It has provided homes for people. It's fed the community. And it can still do that same thing. And that's what we're trying to do. Of course, we do not want corruption if there is any in and on our board or throughout this process. But the truth of the matter is we have had lots of successes. The other thing I want to address too is that Senator Williams mentioned about audits. We've passed all of our audits. Every single audit that we have had, we have passed, and we would be willing to provide that information to this board.
All right, thank you. Now, you mentioned when Representative News question, which appointee are you? Are you an appointee from the city, from the county?
Yes, ma'am. I am. I'm sorry. I'm appointed through the city.
All right, so you live in the city of Milledgeville.
I'm from Milledgeville, from Baldwin, born and raised. Yes.
Okay, all right. I'm sorry? Senator Williams, I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, I appreciate all the work that Dr. Nelson has done and the previous board. But the allegations on the previous board, then she fits into the allegation. Is that not correct?
Well, I'm not an attorney.
I can answer that. Within the documents that have been submitted, my name is excluded. Actually, I was the one who called out Mr. Grant for possibly erroneously trying to fire Mrs. Demian. So no, I stand juxtaposition to any corruption that has it or alleged corruption that could have happened on the board.
Okay.
And I also want to state that I have voted against bills or people that or proposals that did not meet our standard requirement. We want all businesses, micro, all the way up to large businesses, to have the opportunity to have a business or a platform at Central State.
All right, thank you. Chair Mathiak, do you have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Nelson?
Thank you. No, I'm not from Ms. Nelson. Can we question Williams?
Well,
Or would you rather not do
if
that?
you could stand by, we're gonna let him wrap up in just a moment.
Okay.
All right, so
Thank you.
if you can just stand by for a second. Clerk, please go ahead with your question.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Who appointed the chair of the board currently?
The chairperson was nominated by the other board members. So we have an election, so people ask to serve in certain capacities. And so Mr. Grant decided that he wanted to serve as chair, and then there was a vote taken amongst the voting board members.
Are there, I think I'm just trying to get a better understanding, because this essentially removes, as you stated, a lot of the local folks.
Could possibly be all.
Right. Yes, of course. But, as this legislation gives the governor, the speaker, lieutenant governor, the ability to reappoint, and as they currently have that ability right now, I'm curious, are those folks from Milledgeville? Are they folks who understand the local issues? I'm trying to get a better understanding of where the problems are coming from.
So all of the people that are currently serving on the board and have been appointed by previous the governor, the lieutenant governor, and the like, most of them, yes, do come from Milledgeville or have a strong affiliation with Milledgeville. So yes, they're very familiar with our local population and local sentiment and have close ties to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you, Whit Park. Representative Dawson. Please go ahead with your question.
Briefly, a question for you. I hear people speaking in opposition to this, but the only opposition I've heard is to 4 members, as if I think you're proposing there should be more members than 4. But my question is, do you have a problem with this being housed under the Department of Community Affairs? Are you okay with that?
I have no problem with where our support comes from the state. We have a great working relationship with property commissions because we have to have the land transferred from you anyway. We have to work together. So if it belongs to the state, the properties are conveyed to the local redevelopment authority. And then from there, we try to repurpose them with businesses who have ideas. So we don't have a problem with, at least in my opinion, we don't have a problem with that.
Legislation?
My opposition specifically is having this under this current legislation, the county and the city would not be allowed to appoint board members to the hospital. And that was in the original legislation. It's as simple as that.
Chairman, now is a question for you.
Okay, sure.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's my understanding that what you just said is you had 2 appointments from the city, 2 from the county, the governor, lieutenant governor, speaker, representative, and senator, and that makes up your 9. It's my other understanding that once the expired seats, they're still attending, but they have no vote. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, and according to what I'm reading in the bill on line 212, it says to appoint, select, and employ officers, agents, and employees, including real estate, environmental, engineering, architectural, and construction experts, fiscal agents, attorneys, and to fix their respective compensations. That doesn't change what I just read with the city, the county, the governor. And you just said that they did appoint members to this board that were local or had a strong affiliation with Milledgeville Baldwin. Is
Yes.
that correct?
Right. But what his bill does is takes the number down from 9 to 4 or 5, 3 voting members and one someone else.
Where is that in the bill? I don't see that.
I thought he just mentioned that.
Yes.
31, is that?
He said that I think I heard him say that the bill will come down to 4 appointments, 3 voting.
It does. It begins at 131. You're
Thank
correct.
you.
Yeah. All right. Representative Lyles.
Yes, she answered one of.
Oh, she got him. Okay.
One of my questions was answered, but what I wanted to know is, according to you said according to your bylaw, members whose terms expired are still allowed to remain on the board after their terms have expired, but they can't form a quorum. So what is the purpose? I mean, how did that relate to what do they do when they remain on the board after their term expired? I mean, what are their duties are?
The current chair had asked them to simply stay on, and I'm not sure he quite understood that we could. I can't speak for him, but he asked them to stay on until other board members could be appointed from the other bodies. So according to Senator Williams, he's having problems, or at least some of the other members, I guess, from the state level are having problems appointing members. We at the local level are not having any problems appointing people. So as I stated before with the city, we had a member that was coming off. I was not one of those. I wanted to be reappointed. One other member decided that he wanted to come off. They expeditiously voted in the new member, and so now she's ready to go. We have a process in place, but again, I think from what Mr. Williams is saying is they're having problems finding people to transition quickly into these new and open roles. But again, the city and the county haven't had that problem.
I want to understand you're saying that you still have board members who have not been appointed.
Yes.
Who appoints the board members that have not been appointed?
The county, the county already has already made their appointments as far as I understand, but Senator Williams, I'm not sure if he's made his appointments. I'm not sure if the governor has made his appointments. I'm not sure if Senator Jones, I'm sorry, Burt Jones has made his. Right. So I'm not sure if they've made their appointments. So the appointments from, as far as I understand, the appointments coming from the state level have not been appointed, but the local level has. Now, again, Representative Griffin said that he has submitted two names to for the board. Now, I'm not sure where they are in the process. I do not understand what the process is at the state level. I submitted at the local level, I submitted my resume to the city. The city voted on me being appointed to the board, and then I started. Again, I don't know what the process is at the state level because I wasn't appointed by someone at the state.
One more question, if you want. Has anybody, any of these appointments that have not been appointed, have they communicated to the board why they haven't been appointed, or what's the holdup of appointing these new members?
I don't know who the new members would be, because again, I would presume that's confidential. They would need to work directly with their representatives. So I can't speak for, I can't speak for that.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nelson. Thank you, Representative Miles. All right, we are way over. We actually have gone 15 minutes over our meeting. What's the will of the committee? Motion do pass by substitute? By Representative Thomas. Do we have a second? Discussion. All right. Whit Park.
Madam Chair, at this time, I'd like to make a motion to table.
All right. Got a second? All right, let's take it up. All right, so we have a motion to table. All those in favor of tabling motion for SB 260, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I was getting a little concerned there for a minute. We've been here for a minute. All right, I'm sorry. SB 252, I apologize. I think 260. Okay, I said the right one. Okay. All right, all those opposed? No. All right, so please raise your hands if you're opposed. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, if you're in favor, raise your hands. All right, 5 in favor. Okay, so the motion to table failed. All right, so we do have a motion do pass on the table. All those in favor of do pass by substitute for SB 260, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed?
No.
All right. You're abstaining? Okay, we have 1 abstaining. Thank you. All right, the motion does pass. Thank all of you for your time today, and look forward to seeing you in chamber in a few minutes.